Hey everybody, and welcome to the Rootbound Studio. Hey, today we're going to be taking this old dresser that I picked up in an alley behind a sketchy bar, and we're going to be turning it into a buffet that I can put into my home. It's in really rough shape. It has a lot of damage. It sat outside in the coastal weather for at least a while. It's missing parts, like this drawer that used to be here, which missing probably isn't exactly the right term. The pieces to this drawer were there, but they were not salvageable. These two bottom drawers will not open or close anymore. Like, this is their current state. So we have some work to do to these drawers. The hardware for this piece is all here. But it's really dirty. Like, I should be wearing gloves to touch this thing right now. That's how sketchy this piece of furniture is, but it's really solid still, and all the hardware's here, and I like the hardware. It's cool hardware. It just needs a little work. So we're gonna strip it all off. We're gonna clean all that hardware up. We're gonna fix these pieces in the molding where it's popping out, where it's just had too much exposure to weather. This piece comes complete with graffiti, so I don't know if you know your game symbols, but I'd love to know what that means. I don't know. Maybe drop a comment down below and tell me what that means. The back has additional graffiti, and it's even more colorful. It's more colorful than this. I don't know. Somebody didn't even have spray paint for this. They had to brush it on. I don't know. Anyways, these are all pieces to the drawers. This is how these drawers were originally assembled, was they were glued together with these little wedges. There were dozens of them laying in the parking lot behind this bar. I picked up all that I could find, so we're going to have a little work to do to get these drawers back to being sound. Some of the drawer fronts are a little loose, so we're going to work on those. But the first thing I want to do when I start any project, especially a project of this size, is I just want to kind of make a list of all the things that need to happen before this thing is done. So I have taken a little time, I have looked over this piece, and I've decided the very first thing we need to do is clean this buffet where it's clean enough to work on. Like, it really is kind of icky. So we're going to do a lot of cleaning on it before we ever even get started. We have a lot of repairs to make on this piece. So we have molding that's coming off, we have drawers that don't open and close. This space that was previously a drawer, we're gonna put an open shelf in here, so we have a little work to do in there. We're gonna sand on these drawers until they work. We may have to wax them. I'm not sure to what extent we'll have to do there. Once we dig into this project, we'll know a little more about what we'll need there. We are eventually going to get this piece all cleaned up, sanded, not down to the bare wood, but down to where it's a good paintable surface. And then we're going to paint it in Yankee Blue, which is a Dixie Belle color that I love. And we're going to eventually add some accents in Mason-Dixon Gray. It's going to be a really cool color combo. We'll seal and wax this piece. Because all the hardware is here, I am going to reuse this hardware, and I do like this hardware. It needs a little bit of repair and a lot of cleaning. And then I think because it's been exposed to so many elements, we're eventually just going to put a rust inhibitor on this and paint this hardware and put it back on. I don't know if we could ever get it cleaned up enough that we would love it without putting a finish on it. So we are going to paint the hardware for this and add a little bit of gilding wax to kind of give it some depth and bring out all of the detail in this hardware. We'll get the hardware reinstalled on here. We'll have that little shelf built in there, and this thing will be ready to roll. So first things first, I'm going to get out a shop vac, a dust mask, some gloves, and some bleach, and we're going to get this piece cleaned up. clean. Yuck. This is really icky. So I'm going to clean up these drawer fronts and I'm going to let this piece dry. I'm probably going to come back over it one more time and clean it because it's really dirty. Like, look at this rag. It's this dirty. Yuck. So we're going to give it an extra scrub and then we'll be ready to start making some repairs on it. Last time we met, we cleaned this dresser up, at least clean enough to work on. We did not clean it to the point where it needs to be to paint it, but we did get it clean enough that we could at least touch it, and that's a good start. We're going to take today and we're going to do some additional prep work on this piece. Doing prep work is not fun, but it really gives you an opportunity to get to know your piece. Like, you will spend a lot of time in areas that you don't normally see when you're using a piece of furniture in your house, but it gives you a chance to really get in and see what's going on with the piece. So this piece has two different types of drawers. It has these curved front drawers that go on either end of this buffet, and it also has these flat front drawers that go behind the doors. And so we're going to take today, we're going to go through each one of these drawers and we're going to look and see what needs to be repaired. We're going to pull all the hardware and any other weird stuff off of them. And we are going to do some light sanding and just really get to know our piece. So let's get started. So we're going to start with these flat front drawers. These drawers do not have any hardware on them. We're just going to take some time. We're going to use a piece of 220 sandpaper that is on a sanding block here. We'll need these tools when we start pulling off hardware on pieces. It's always nice to have a dust cloth or a little piece of something around so you can wipe back and see where you're at. When you're sanding, wear your safety glasses. You never know what's going to fly off a piece, especially when you have a piece like this. So glasses are good, and I have my gloves here handy because I also do not want splinters out of this. So let's get started. What I'm really trying to do is pull off, this has a lot of flaky finish on it. I don't want any of that on there. I don't want any barrier between the paint that I'm going to put on here and the actual wood. So everywhere that there's this loose flaking finish, I want all of that off. There is one drawer done. We have 2 of these to do and 6 of these others to do. Okay, on this drawer we are going to start with pulling this hardware off. This hardware just has screws in the back of it, so we're just going to pull this hardware off. We're going to save it because we do want to reuse this hardware, but this is also a good chance to pull out like these tacks and things like that are you're going to find in your piece as you start working on it. Things that have been loved and lived with for a long time have character, and this is character. All right, and there's our hardware. We're just gonna stick our screws right back in the back of it so we don't lose track of them. These screws are not in good shape, but we are gonna reuse them because they are the right length. And sometimes it can be a booger to find screws that are the right length when you are missing them or yours are destroyed. So we're gonna get sanding this piece. All right, so we have all of our drawers sanded. We're making a few repairs now. So what I have here are 2 drawers that I've already made repairs to. This one, both of the ends of this drawer front were coming off. So I have glued them and put clamps on them. And this one had this little front piece of molding sliding out of the track that it's supposed to sit in, so I have glued and clamped it. On this drawer in the middle, I have both of those issues. So I have drawer sides that are coming out and loose, and I have some molding here that is up, and so I'm going to show you real quick and how easy it is to fix this. Okay, so I'm going to start with this top piece right here because it'll be much easier to work with. This drawer, if I only have a clamp and this paint stick that I'm going to use to hold this piece in place, then it will be to work with that drawer after I get this big heavy pipe clamp put on it. So I'm just going to put a little glue in here. I use this Gorilla Wood glue, but you can use whatever kind of glue you want. And I'm just going to stick some in there. I am going to use my fingernail and just push that glue right underneath because that's where I want it to be. And then I'm going to use my towel here and just make sure that I have as much of that glue off of the outside as possible. That will save us a little bit of glue cleanup. So I'm going to set this paint stick right on top of where I have this and push it down into place. I'm going to get it as straight and perfect as I can underneath there. And then I'm going to take my clamp push it right on here and then see if I can't clamp it in place, holding that piece down. And then we'll let that dry. We're going to work on fixing this end. Okay, this end is really loose. You can see it has virtually nothing holding it. And so what we want to do is just pull this out just enough. We don't want to pull it all the way out because then we'll mess up the other end too. But we want to pull it out and put some glue in each of these grooves in here. And then we want to slide this drawer back together, fitting it together nice and snug like it was meant to be. Use our rag and clean up what we can. We are still going to have to come back and use a piece of sandpaper and pull this off. And then we want to check the inside of the drawer too. and make sure that we don't have glue coming through this inside piece and it doesn't feel like there's any there. Okay, now we have our glue in place, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this clamp and we're gonna stick it on this drawer end. So this is the side of the drawer here. Snug it up a little bit. Push this forward where you can see. Okay. And then we're just gonna tighten this at the bottom here until it's nice and snug and holding this joint at the end firm. So this joint here is where we've added our glue, we've added this clamp, and now we're going to hold it nice and firm. Once this dries, then we'll be able to come back and glue any other spots that we have on this drawer. But I like to do them one at a time. That gives this an opportunity to dry and square. I can square it up before I do the next one. Okay, that's how easy it is to fix it when your dovetailed drawers have come apart. All right, we have got all of our drawers done. They are clamped, they're glued, we've sanded them all. So we're gonna let those sit overnight and just let everything glue up tight. While those are drying, we're gonna start working on the main body of this buffet. We're gonna do all of the same steps on this main body. We're gonna remove this hardware. We're gonna start sanding with our 220 sandpaper and a sanding block. We're gonna pay particular attention to the areas where we have varnish that's peeling up, so we can make sure that we have a nice smooth finish before we ever start applying paint. And then we are going to be careful around the areas where we know we have loose molding or where we know we're gonna have to make repairs. We don't wanna make that any worse before we have to come back and fix it. So let's get started. Okay, I have my screwdriver here. I'm gonna start taking this hardware off of the front of these cabinet doors. I'm gonna leave these little magnet clasps on here and just paint over them. I'm also gonna leave the hinges on these doors and just paint over them. So, okay, these are going to just take us a little prying to get off. They're all oxidized onto this surface. We want to make sure we don't damage them. And oh, they do have extra attachment on them too. All right, let's get another tool. Okay, so attaching these face plates to these cabinet doors are these little bitty tiny nails. They're just itty bitty, but there's 2 on each of them. And we want to be able to pull these off of here without bending these face plates. And we'll just replace these tiny little nails. But we need to be able to get down in there. So I have a little spatula here that is just a little bit thinner than my screwdriver that I'm trying to use. So I'm just gonna see if I can get underneath there and just pry a little bit. Okay. Got them off. All right, we're gonna take our sandpaper, we're gonna go over this, and then we'll be ready to start cleaning and painting, the fun part. All right, we are back. I spent yesterday sanding this piece and getting it ready for paint today. It was quite a job. It took an entire day to sand. I did not film all of that for you, for which you will thank me. There were a lot of cuss words, several beers, and filth from head to toe by the end of it. But when you spend that kind of time doing your prep work and getting to know a piece, you really get a good feel for what this piece can be when it's done. It's going to be amazing. It's really going to be beautiful. But we knew going into this piece that there was going to be a lot of prep work to do. So a couple of the things that I really loved about it once I started working on it, which when you do prep work like that, you get to know every single inch, every crook, every cranny in your piece, and then you just have like a real knowledge of what you're dealing with as a whole. But I loved that this top sanded off so nicely. So I think my original plan was to paint this whole piece, but I think as the day wore on yesterday, I became a little more convinced that maybe I might like to add a little wood element to this piece and put some stain on here. So I think what I'm leaning towards doing right now is putting espresso gel stain on this top and on the bottoms, possibly on this front, and then painting these doors and the drawer fronts with the Yankee blue, and then accenting that with a gray. I haven't really made up my mind there, and just seeing how that all comes together. I love that look where you have that natural wood element and then the painted stuff, and it does save the hassle of trying to pull the varnish off of these really difficult areas to get to. I did end up dragging out a palm sander yesterday. It was just too much to do with my sanding block and a sheet of sandpaper. So I did end up using a palm sander on this top, and I did end up getting my Dremel tool out with a sanding head on it to get into some of these more delicate, intricate areas where I just couldn't get in there with the sandpaper. But I feel really good about the way that it came out after it was sanded, and so today I'm thinking I might slap a little stain on here and just see what I think. Worst case scenario, I don't like the stain and it's a paint over job. No big deal. That's the beauty of starting a project and changing your mind part of the way through, is it's truly just paint. So you can always say, I don't like this, let's start over fresh. So that's where we're at with this project today. Yesterday we did all the drawers and the drawer fronts, got them all secured, nice and tight, clamped and sealed. They're dry and ready to paint today too, so we're gonna be doing a little painting today. Well, thanks for watching today as we got this buffet all ready to paint and to stain. We went through the whole process of prepping this piece, from the cleaning to the sanding of the drawers, the hardware removal. We glued and clamped all those drawers back together, and we sanded the body of this buffet. The tools that we used for today's video were bleach and a rag, a scrub brush if you think you need one, a screwdriver and a prying tool to get that hardware off, some sandpaper, and we did end up using a palm sander on the body of this buffet, and some wood glue and some clamps to get those pesky drawers put back together. Thanks for watching today, and stick around because we're going to move on to the staining of this piece.